You know, lately I've been reminiscing. I've been rewatching The X-Files from beginning to end and reading old X-Files magazines and thinking about watching movies and talking to all of you about weird, obscure movies. As a child, you know, of the late 80s, I would go to video stores. I would pick out things purely based upon their covers. I would watch things on cable and not even knowing what they are most of the time, just having an impact on these weird science fiction stuff. You know, it came from outer space, Star Trek, Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, all these things had an impact on me growing up, which led me to kind of be in search of weird, obscure movies, no matter what the genre was. Horror, you know, science fiction, action, all of those things had an impact on me. Mystery Science Theater was a huge impact as well. So when I first started my channel, I was looking to aim to do the same thing. I'm back to do it. So welcome to Nightmare Flashbacks. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing the 1989 film Witch Story. Now, this is been compared to like an Evil Dead or something like that, and it does have aspects of that. If you can imagine if the Evil Dead was just taking way too seriously and didn't have like the quirky and frantic nature that Evil Dead has. So this movie came to my attention because it was one of the recent releases from Vinegar Syndrome. It has a new 4K scan and it has a beautiful hard shell case with an inner shell as well. For all my physical media fans, I definitely recommend this release if this is a movie that you love. But I have no complaints here. Vinegar Syndrome does a great job, and I just want to talk about this film. So this film starts out with a mother and her daughter, Rachel, who is the iconic demon child on here, you know, bewitched girl, which she asks, do you want to play? And the question is, do you want to play with a young girl standing in the middle of nowhere with a white ball? The answer is no, guys. The answer is always no. Demon children are everywhere, and you don't want to talk to them or, you know, infringe with them at all. You know, you just walk away, guys. Anyway, so we start this film out with a mother and a daughter, and they're having the talk. And by talk, I mean they're talking about how this girl is going to inherit the powers of evil and Satan himself, you know. Not a conversation you would expect to have your mother at 8 years old. This is what starts it out, where you're like, okay, it's very ominous, it's very creepy, the music is very done. You know, our main actress is doing a hell of a job selling the fact that she is a witch and her child is going to be imbued with all these powers of darkness here. So we get them, and they're coming to burn this woman at the stake. And so there's a priest there who's trying to stop this, and we later find out that he was actually in love with this woman and he was trying to save her, but she got taken over by the powers of darkness and she is burned at the stake. And before all of this, she curses them and their kids and their kids and their kids and their kids and their kids. I think there's like 19 generations that she curses. So it doesn't matter what happens in this film, because inevitably all the grandchildren and children of them are going to be cursed. Like I said, it really doesn't matter. But then we hard cut, and this is where our first like tonal dissonance happens, where it's just like, you know, very ominous and, you know, foreboding, and then we cut to butt rock with a bunch of teens on a bus. And this movie does this a couple times, where there's a couple tonal shifts throughout the movie, and they're very jarring. And it's you can imagine the dialogue is very stilted in this. If you can just go to Instagram, look up any reel and Instagram famous person and how they talk and how they edit, that's exactly how the beginning of this movie is. Tonal shifts and then dialogue that is beat for beat acted like it was like fed them the lines, like they couldn't remember what they were supposed to say. The setup here is, like I said in the beginning, we have a witch, we have our daughter, and before this happens, Rachel is basically told all of these things, and then she just jumps out the window. So she's dead. So our setup is witch burned, little Rachel is dead, so we know something's going to happen at this house. Also, this is set in Florida, so, you know, what can you say? Witches in an old abandoned house in Florida, shit's gonna go downhill fast. So we have our main characters, our brother and our sister, and they basically find out after their parents pass away that there is a house and a mortgage that was kind of hidden, and they didn't know it wasn't even in the will left to them, but they decided not to go on their own to do all this stuff. They decided to bring a bunch of friends. You want to come to this abandoned building that may not even have electricity or water or any functionality at all? Let's go. They never discussed that, because I want to know who set up this thing, because even though it's the 80s, these are children. How did they set up water and electricity all on their own? But yet they've got it. These are things that keep me up at night in movies. They all get there. They're having a fun time. There's beer. There's music. There's girls stripping on tables. Now, I will say, this movie, if you're looking for any type of, what I'm talking about, there is none of that in here. It's a tease throughout this entire movie. Some films give you the goods. This film teases the goods and never gives it to you. But I guess, we can't always have what we want. We've got witches, we've got some sexual tension here, and you've got gore and a little bit of frantic Evil Dead mixed in, a little salt pit in there. Basically, how our film progresses from here is that there's one girl named Samara, and she is kind of in love with this boy who's a cousin, but not really her cousin anyway. And the sister's like, no, you need to stay away from her. She's kind of weird. She has visions of people being stabbed. And then inevitably, basically what happens is Rachel shows up in the very beginning when they get there. She's out in the field. They go to talk to her again. Warning, do not talk to small children in white clothing in the middle of fields in abandoned places that you've never seen before. It's just a red flag everywhere, red flag. I think there's parts I like about it, but it kind of drones on and meanders throughout the middle, is that basically one by one they get possessed, kind of like an Evil Dead, and they start killing each other. The killings are just boring and they're not that entertaining, and this is where I say the film takes itself far too seriously, and the fact that is this Italian-made movie, and you can tell that it wanted to take itself seriously. It wanted to be a proper horror movie, but the problem is the acting is bad, and then on top of that, it's so self-serious that all these kills, while they could have been fun and wacky, they're just kind of boring. And the plot device of everybody being like possessed and then killing everybody in the house, it's kind of like, yes, we know that they're cursed, but again, it left nothing for me. I really wanted to like this film more than I did, and the first act of the film I think I like way more than I like the next two acts, because again, the middle of the movie is basically just them getting possessed and killing each other, and then later they find out about the priest, who happens to be still alive, although he's lost his mind completely and is living in the basement of a church, and then all this stuff happens. Anyway, they seek out the priest because they're hoping that he can help explain and help them thwart this evil of darkness. And, he's got old books. Rachel's trying to get them to come to the dark side. It's just a bunch of nothing, and it kind of compounds, and then they end up in one place. And our end scene basically revolves in a shouting match. Like I've said, the kills are fine, but the plot is very thin, and once you bring our priest into it, our witch suddenly reappears there, and Rachel's there, and basically the end is just them trying to shout at Rachel like they're trying to get a puppy to come to them. They're shouting at, no, Rachel, come with me, disconnect from the bad witch, and Rachel's mom is like, no, join the dark side, and she can't decide. Then the brother and sister they're trying to coax her over there. I don't know what they're offering, okay? At least we've got a light and dark thing. I don't know, are they gonna go out for like burgers or something later? Like, hey, we're going to Shake Shack. Do you want to come? We can get you a milkshake. Anyway, so they have a shouting match. Legit not. This is like, shit you not. This is like 5 minutes of the movie where they're just shouting at each other back and forth. Like, this is getting us nowhere. Conflict resolution is not going well in this film. So inevitably, the priest brought in this like silver cross to try and thwart this witch with that. It doesn't go well. It ends up getting thrown in the fire. And the one thing this 4K does is you get to see all the strings in this movie, and it's fantastic. I love it. Rachel decides that she probably doesn't want to, be the bearer of darkness and, work for Satan. The hours are long and he's kind of a dick. So I just don't think it's going to work well for an 8-year-old child. So she uses her mind powers to throw this thing into her mother and kill her. She lights a fire, she blows up, and but it's funny because when you're watching this, this 4K is so clear in these movies, but you just see the string and this thing coming across. It's glorious. It's why I love these movies. Anyway, this is an okay movie. It's fun in some aspects. I like Italian-made movies most of the time. I think they just didn't understand what they were going for, and I think what they were aping off of and ripping off a little bit, it works better in those films because it isn't taken as seriously as this film tries to take the subject matter. Sometimes when you're talking about witches and like curses and stuff like that, you want to take some level of like seriousness seriousness to this. And I think if like the cursed part and that stuff had been taken seriously, but the demons had been a little more playful, it would have been fun. But it just seemed like these characters were just getting possessed and then kind of making fun of some people and then killing them, dispatching them pretty easily. So all that happens is, the evil is thwarted seemingly, but then at the end, the priest shows up and then kills the two of them, and that's where we end. We know that the curse is probably going to continue because the devil just took over the priest. That's what happened, or that's what they want you to think happened. So inevitably, like I said, 19 generations are cursed and it's going to continue on, but that's basically the movie. That you might enjoy this movie if you like this level of movie, but I just think I wish it was having more fun with itself. I'm not holding against what the movie is and what I am like pushing onto it. It's not like I'm just, going, this is what I want the movie to be, and it's not being that. These are just pull quotes from actually what the director has talked about before, that was kind of their onlook and the inspiration wasn't, an Evil Dead. And so when you're saying those things, but then you're doing something completely different than that, that's where my problem is, where it's like, this is what you wanted to make, this is what you made, so people are going to compare the two things in some kind of way, and it doesn't always work well for the film. But overall, I think it was shot pretty well. There are some scenes that linger on too long. The gore is there, and I think it's fun for the most part. There is one great scene where one of the guys is out there half drunk, driving a tractor, and he runs over Rachel when she just pops up and he can't get out of the way, and there's a nice crunching sound of her body going through these wheels, and so the special effects there are pretty solid, and that's pretty great. And she becomes corporeal for some reason there, but then she is not, and she just drifts off. So I like that they're playing with the aspects of this is all in his head and this didn't actually happen. So I wish there was more aspects of Rachel showing up in the film, because she's really not in it that much, and she's on the damn cover, for what you would say, But I like the movie. I don't love the movie. Let me know down below if you've seen this movie. What do you think about it? If you picked up this Vinegar Syndrome release, let me know what you think about the release itself. That's what I think about Witch Story from 1989. It's a fine movie, but not one of the best weirder movies that I've seen as of late. So if you have any suggestions for films that you would like to see me cover on the show Nightmare Flashbacks, let me know in the comments below, because I'm looking for anything that's weird or obscure. Most of these I try to own because I like to see them in a format that is available to people for you to purchase. So if I can tell you where you can go get it if you like this movie, that is my goal. So that's why I try to watch movies or come across movies that I own, but if I don't own it, I can, definitely try and pick it up if it's available. So just let me know if it's available, where it's available at, and I will definitely seek it out. So I do have a few planned. For going forward, I will put polls up on my community tab if I'm ever going to kind of ask you guys for feedback, or you can put them below in the comments of these videos. But that's pretty much all I've got. I'm happy to be back covering these weirder movies, and I'm looking forward to the slate that I've kind of picked out and seeing the feedback from you guys and what you might want to see. So again, thanks for stopping by, watching my review for Witch Story. I'm looking forward to hearing all of your feedback and what we're going to do in the future. I love talking about these movies, and I'm excited to continue to do it. So if you like what we do here, consider becoming part of the collective, and I'll talk to you guys in my next review.